Volume 7 C75. Damn it. Evil Eye cursed as reality hit her after her mask was broken. Lake Hughes's eyes followed the mask, and her confusion and alarm over Evil Eye's sudden outburst was redoubled as the magic item was smashed. God damn it. Evil Eye muttered when she felt Lake Hughes's hands on her shoulders. Evil Eye. What? What was that? Why'd you say? Do. All that? I know you love me. I wasn't talking about you, I meant the Lake Hughes stopped her words when Evil Eye's hands dropped down into her lap. Look into my eyes, and tell me you love me, sister, Evil Eye said as her face came up and the blood-red pools were laid bare for the first time. It took Lake Hughes a moment to understand what she was seeing, but when the realization dawned and shimmering beautiful blood-red pools were laid out before her in their undeniable state, she flung herself away from Evil Eye, pushing aside the gently resting hands, and drew her sword. The priestess of the god of water raised her sword to the guard position. You were turned? She said with anguish as she looked at the kneeling figure, her sword wavering as she slid one foot back, ready to launch her attack. No. No, I was this before we met. I've been a vampire for over 200 years. The mask. It hid it. But I don't want to hide what I am from you. I love you. I love you all. I'm just tired of lying. I want to be myself with the people I love. What's wrong with that? She asked, her fingers shaking. She squeezed one hand over the other to hold them still. A bloodsucker? A predator? A monster that feeds on the lives of humans? Lake Hughes asked. How many did you take under the guise of our protector? None, Evil Eye shouted back. I never killed anyone in the time I've been with you. I was one of the 13 heroes, damn it. Feeding gives me benefits, but I don't have to do it. I don't have to. I can live without blood and haven't had any and I don't even know how long. I'm your sister on the battlefield. Haven't I always been there with you? Haven't we fought together? Slept together? Drunk together? Played games together? How can you doubt me just because of these? Evil Eye ranted and pointed to her blood-red eyes. Lake Hughes's battle stand didn't waver. Moman. Get away from her, Lake Hughes said with a slow, measured voice of instruction. You make too much of it, Lake Hughes. Sit down, he said as if the room was not as tense as a taut rope and pointed, not to the bed again, but to a chair at a small stone table. You can't be serious. She's a vampire. She was turned somehow. When? Lake Hughes looked at Evil Eye. The vampire hadn't moved. The priestess's eyes filled with tears that blurred out the creature in front of her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it happened to you. I'll set you free, Lake Hughes said. Lake Hughes, Moman said more sternly, lower your sword. Evil Eye rose to her feet. You're my sister. You're my sister, and I love you more than anything. I wasn't turned recently. I've been this the whole time, you didn't know it. I kept it secret from you because I had to. But I don't hate humans. I never did, and I would never, ever hurt you. She stepped toward the priestess. Evil Eye, stop, Moman said, she's not in her right mind. She needs time. No, Evil Eye said and rubbed her little button nose with the back of her hand. Lake Hughes, she stepped closer, it's me. I'm your sister, your friend. You've always trusted me. We fought undead together. We've protected even demi-humans sometimes. You know me. Lake Hughes's sword didn't move. Stop. Just stop right there. The priestess demanded. Lake Hughes. I'd give up anything for you. But this has to stop. It has to. I want you to love me for who I am, no matter what I am. Not because of who you thought I was, what you thought I was. Is that so hard? Search your heart. Please. See me as you've always seen me. Please. I can't live with the lies anymore. Evil Eye put her hand up to the sword of darkness. The tip was before her eyes, looming large enough that it obscured Evil Eye's view of her sister. The tiny hand moved the sword tip, not away, but tracing over her face, a tiny cut of the sword tracing its way down as a red streak over the little vampire's face. You're my sister, Evil Eye insisted as Lake Hughes, who clenched and reclenched her hands around the hilt of the blade, constantly shifting her feet, neither swung nor thrust the blade, but nor did she pull it back. Moman rose to his feet. I'm not using any power on you right now, am I? Evil Eye asked. You still have control. My sister just cut my face, see? The vampire said and traced a finger over the streak and held it up. I'm not fighting you, I can't fight you. I won't. Lake Hughes, Evil Eye, you're going too far, Momen insisted. No, Momen. This has to get settled. This is between sisters. It's none of your business what happens, Evil Eye insisted. I'm sorry, Lake Hughes said again. She didn't stop Evil Eye from moving the sword, though it wobbled and wavered even without the vampire's touch. If you want to kill a vampire, this is where you need to strike. You know that, Evil Eye said. It'll be painless and quick, she said as she put the tip over her heart. You're my big sister. I'm your shorty. Please. Please understand I can't help being this, but I've been this as long as you've known me. When you hugged me, you hugged my undead body. When you slapped my back and said I was all heart. That heart had already stopped beating over 200 years ago. But whether it beat or not, it still loves all of you, Evil Eye said, sniffling a little. She inched closer so that the tip of the blade depressed her skin just a tiny bit. I knew what you were. A noble girl running away from a life she didn't want. A big oaf who loves booze and virgins to hide her insecurities about being different. Two assassins who fell in love with a life of adventure, and care too much about you to kill you even though that was their mission. Now you know me, all of me. Can't you just? The gods are wrong. I'm me. Not just a monster. Look past what they tell you. And I'm waiting for you on the other side of your blade. Put away your sword, Evil Eye said with a little smile. Hug me like you always have. Sister. My sister. Lake Hughes wept. You'll always be my sister. And I love you more than words can say. Evil Eye's arms went wide apart. I know. I'll hug you. One more time. And set you free, Lake Hughes sobbed, and as the words sank in, so did the sword as Lake Hughes pushed the tip into Evil Eye's flesh, tearing it open with almost no resistance. Lake Hughes rushed it forward so that it emerged out Evil Eye's back, and then released it with a sob, catching the vampire before she could fall, and wrapping her arms around her. They fell to the stone floor with a thud together. My sister. My sister. My sister. Lake Hughes wailed and rubbed the body as the bright red light in the vampire's eyes began to grow dull and empty as the second death claimed her. I'm sorry. I am sorry. The priestess wailed and kissed the cheeks and forehead of the body as it gave up its final spasms. I set you free. It's all I could do for you. I'm sorry. The gods will be done. You're at peace. It's all I could do for you. She lay with the body of her sister, sobbing her tears onto the face of the unmoving corpse, oblivious to the presence of Momen. You fool. You stupid, stupid fool. Pandora's actor said as he looked down at the body. This would not be, were it not my invader's will. And with that thought, and a lingering look down at his little vampire, he sat down to wait for the inevitable. Which did not take place for hours, until what he assumed was morning, and there was a knock at the door and a frantic voice called out, Lake Hughes? What's wrong in there? And Gagrin's shoulder began to slam home. Raymond left the table without Nua, though she made to rise when he did. He held a hand up in front of her. Stop. You're still hungry, he said. Have some more. He raised his other hand and the dark elf woman appeared again. My servant is still starving, though I'm stuffed, he said, putting on his most delightful smile and lightly tapping his stomach. Bring her as many helpings as she wants. I'll pay for it with my room in the morning. As you wish, the waitress said with the warm light in her eyes before she made her retreat. When you're done, get a room and go to sleep. I will see you in the morning. Raymond gave the command, and Nua bowed her head to him. As you command, master, she said, and watched him leave her behind. It wasn't until he was completely gone that Nua felt able to relax. So he wants to play with me. HMPF. Idiot. Humans are evil monsters. I won't be fooled again, she told herself, and she remained for 2 straight hours, eating her fill of bowl after bowl, the memory of the scrap of old bread, most of which she'd vomited up, and watery stew with nothing but old vegetables and no meat to be had, faded away as it was replaced with a fresh experience of hot, delicious food. When she left the table at last, retrieved a key to another room, and made her way upstairs, she took a lingering look at his door. In another time, I might have been so grateful to be with someone good. I might have tried to make them love me. A lifetime ago. Still, he does look a little like him. Nua took a deep breath and then slowly let it out. Don't be fooled, he's been dead for centuries, and if he weren't, I'd kill him myself. For now. Just survive and don't give in. she told herself, and then went to her own room to go to sleep. Don't act like you've got only a skosh of sense, she thought as she closed her eyes on the bed. He's a cardinal. The definition of evil. You won't be fooled again, she thought, and drifted off to sleep under the influence of the first full belly and safe bed in the last 150 years. Volume 7 C76. When he went to bed, he almost regretted not lingering to speak with her. The slave was all but mute, and he'd given way to the awkwardness he felt between them and left her behind. I had questions. He recalled the absurd ease with which she hefted his armor. She had no business being able to do that. Yet she had. Was she a soldier before we harvested her ears? He had to wonder, and that curiosity kept him wondering more and more. And down below, the singing of the miners carried on, and combined with that curious nature of his, sleep was kept at bay for far too long. Well rested or not, Raymond got up in the morning before the sun rose. The long habit was so ingrained that he didn't even use the banded candle alarm. That device, if you were to call it that, was ingenious. The bands of the candle each took 1 hour to burn through, and each one was a separate piece held to the one above and below it by small wooden picks, thus allowing one to add or remove time as needed. With this was a small strip of fabric that held round metal balls, with a lip that could be placed between the layers and pinned in place. As the layers burned down, eventually that lip between layers would fall away, and with it, the metal balls would tumble free and the noise of their falling to the floor would awaken the sleeper. Raymond, however, made no use of it. Instead he simply got up, went to the common baths, cleaned himself up, and changed into his clothing for the day. Only when he had completed this routine, with the hour still very early, did he go to Nua's room. His hand went to the knob and turned it, then he froze. He released his hand, and knocked. He waited for the noise of her waking and rushing to see what he needed. But there was nothing, not a sound. He knocked again. No slave would last long if they were so heavy a sleeper. He thought and opened the door. The bed was made, everything was clean. Did she stay here at all last night? Did she run away? If I lost two on this journey, I'd never hear the end of it. He cursed and then stopped. If she ran away now, would it be worth it to chase her? Who could blame her? He asked, recalling the loving affection between the innkeeper and his wife, and the noise of the miners as they enjoyed music and beer. Like a child tasting candy for the first time. Of course she ran away. Raymond thought, I wish she'd waited a little at least. I suppose I'll just have to hire a coachman. But before that, I suppose I need to make sure she didn't steal the damn horses. He mumbled and took the stairs down to the now empty main floor and went out the door with a yawn. Maybe she slept underneath the carriage after all? He wondered as the cool morning air brushed over him. It was the sound of a loud splash and the noise of an empty bucket being dropped to the ground that jarred him from his thoughts. Who would be washing anything at this absurdly early hour? He wondered, and followed the noise around to the side of the table where a stone well stood. There he found her. The darkness was no real impediment to anyone in the Black Scripture. It might as well have been daytime as far as he was concerned. Her clothing was folded neatly on the ground a few feet away from her, an empty bucket by her feet, and her naked body drenched in water from head to toe. She came out here early to avoid being seen. He realized, but to his surprise, she heard him as well. On some level, he should have felt at least some desire, save for the very small strip of metal around her neck. She was nude, her body was statuesque in a word, and despite what had been done to her golden hair to ensure her mutilated ears were always exposed, she had the form of a lean, athletic woman and long, slender, coltish legs. But he could feel not even a hint of desire, nor did he even truly notice the rest of her for what his eyes took in. "You're back," he whispered while she, caught off guard, alternated between wanting to turn her back to him and knowing she wasn't supposed to show such disrespect. In the end she compromised by turning to the side. "Master. I wasn't running away. I wanted to be clean so I didn't stink and..." Her hands went up and down as if she wasn't sure what to cover, until he caught his senses. Raymond sucked air through his teeth. "You've been injured. Show me your back." She let out the tiniest mewling noise, but her feet inched around in rotation until her back was bare to his eyes. He stepped closer. Up and down her flesh were deep scars, ridges like some mountain range of nightmares that left almost none of the original flesh from her shoulder blades to her lower back. Her arms went up to her chest and covered herself, even though he couldn't have seen it. By the 6, he said. It wasn't just old injuries, there were ample new ones, but not so new that she could have gotten them last night. He looked down on the ground for the bandages she should have had, and found none. No. She never smelled like herbal potion. I'd have noticed that. When did this happen? I didn't do this to you? Raymond demanded. His hand came up to touch the gash in her lower back that showed signs of starting to heal on its own, and then thought the better of it and drew his hand away. I'm aware of my ugliness, Master. I will not forget it, I promise. Nu apologized for her wounds, and though he couldn't see her face, he knew from her voice that the neutral mask was there again. No, it's not that, Raymond said. Has my lord not done this to countless elves? Or has my master not at least seen it? She asked, glancing over her shoulder. No, I'm with the Black Scripture, or was. I worked outside the city dealing with monsters mostly, and... No, I haven't. Doesn't it? Aren't you in pain? He asked as she inched a little farther from him, and her muscle movement caused the injured place to expand and contract only a hair, briefly letting him see how deep the scar would run when the wound finally healed. As I said, Master, I am broken. You will not need to repeat the recent lesson, I promise. Nua could not completely suppress her shiver when she said it. Then, the recent marks? He asked. Your comrade tested me, as I said. 20 lashes, and a knife test, and I passed. Master. Nua explained. Knife test? Raymond asked, but it was more of a distraction to buy time for his mind to process what he was seeing. Dominic wouldn't do this. He couldn't have. Raymond told himself and tried to picture it. Only to succeed with ease. Yes. He could. He easily could. For elven bodyguards. I am to drive you, and protect you if I must. Nua explained. You can fight? Raymond asked, his mind reeled under the assault on his senses, from the smell of blood, from what he saw before his eyes, from what he imagined, and from what he heard from her own lips. No, Master. It is my job to die if I have to. Nu explained, and a memory tickled at the back of Raymond's mind, a long discontinued practice. Some humans used elves as bodyguards, training them not to fight, but to get in the way of any blow in order to protect their master's life. They got better lives, generally. But if their owner died in an attack, the elf that failed would receive an agonizing death. That practice fell out of favor over 50 years ago at least. Master. If you don't intend something else, may I dress? Nua asked, and Raymond blinked his eyes as he snapped out of his daze. He'd all but forgotten her nakedness in the face of everything else. Yes. Of course. But why weren't you healed? Raymond asked. Potions cost money, and if they used herbs I would have stunk. Nua explained matter-of-factly while she began to wipe off the water and put her clothing on again. What value is a little pain for me if it is an expense in coin or comfort to you to fix it, Master? It was a rhetorical question, one she wasn't expecting an answer to. And why didn't you tell me you were injured? Why not use the bathhouse here? Raymond asked, and she blinked her sky-blue eyes at him. Because Master is a cardinal. It wouldn't please you to know that an elf bathed in the same water as people, and it wouldn't matter to you if I was injured unless it kept me from work. I can still work, so it doesn't matter. So I came here to clean the wounds myself. I didn't know my lord would be up so early. If it pleases you, I can have something brought to punish me with. She said it all with such eerie calm, without any pleading or begging, not since she'd asked him the first time not to hurt her if she worked hard. She might be lying. He tried to tell himself, maybe she is rebellious and that is why Dominic beat her the way he did. Again the image came to his mind of Dominic bringing the lash down on her flesh over and over. And it was far too easy. A test. It sounds like something he would do. Raymond had to concede that much. Nua, he said, and she went down on her knees and faced him again. The faint orange light of the sun was starting to rise. Master? She asked without looking up at him. 1,000 words went through his mind, and Raymond discarded them all. Stand up, we're going to go to the apothecary and get you a healing potion. At this hour, my lord. I'm sure they won't be open. She answered and looked at the horizon as the light crept toward the well where he stood. I'll make them open. Just get dressed and come on, he said, and Nua rose to her feet to obey, and when she was dressed,
She followed him to the stable.
Volume 7 C77. Didn't it hurt your back to be seated in the coachman's chair for all those hours?
Raymond asked as they approached the carriage.
Nua began to climb up when Raymond reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. She froze.
Of course, master. But what does that matter? She answered without looking back or letting go of the handle to pull herself up.
Wait,
he said, and went to where the horses stood pawing at the ground with their hooves, and he undid one from the carriage, slipping its bonds and then taking the reins in hand. He drew it away from the carriage and swiftly mounted it. I don't need a saddle to ride, do you? He asked.
No, sir, she replied, but when he held out a hand, she was already moving to mount the space behind him.
It matters, he said, answering his earlier question.
I will have words with my comrade
when I return. It isn't necessary, master. My body has always healed before, it will heal again. And again. And again.
Don't bother if it will create a rift with your
friend,
Nua said while resting her hands on her thighs, and Raymond chose to ignore the way she referred to Cardinal Dominic.
We'll go slow to minimize the pain,
Raymond promised, and he felt Nua's breath waft briefly over the back of his neck. Maybe you are an innocent one, she said it so softly, that if he hadn't been a black scripture, he wouldn't have heard it. Innocent? He asked, and he felt her legs tense against the horse and drive it to go faster. He reined it in with a quick yank and she relaxed her hold on the mount.
Nothing, master. I didn't mean anything by it, I promise. It's just, my lord seems to think. She hesitated, her words halting until Raymond cleared his throat. Go on, he said. If I've given you an incorrect impression, I should be the one to fix it. Whatever he said or however he said it, it seemed to set her at ease as he felt her breath against the back of his neck again as if she'd let go of one she was holding back. Master, you don't have to pretend to be nice to me. It's a lot easier if you're not. Then I'm not always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't have to pretend to care, you don't have to pretend my pain matters. Whatever you're going to do with me, just do or give the order. I know you're good at pretending, but you don't have to with me. I already know the truth. Nua said it with such casual exasperation that he was silent for a lengthy time, the hooves of the horse thudding on the ground as they made their way through the town in search of the apothecary shop. But Nua noticed one thing, the horse wasn't turning around. What is the truth? And how do you know I'm, how did you put it, good at pretending? Raymond asked without looking back at her, his fists tightened around the reins, but he gave no other sign of distress or anger when he asked. Must I answer that, master? Nua asked while he quietly scanned the sides of the empty street, searching the buildings for the shop she needed. Yes, was all he said. You saw the pregnant dark elf with a human husband, you saw them in love, and you were kind and polite to her. But you're a theocracy cardinal. By your teachings, she is not just an animal, she's a potentially dangerous animal. Something that has to be killed or controlled. Like me. And the git in her belly. I know where you get your slave catchers and the middle rank of slave labor. You played nice. But if she were in your country, you would have her sold and not lose a minute of sleep. So, you were a skilled pretender, my lord. When I lived in the House of Aelon, I accompanied him to many plays and never saw an actor who was your equal. Raymond took that in silence. I'm just doing my job. Raymond replied with a bit of a defensive air about him. Trying to protect humanity. I'm sure my lord is a very good human, Nua said, and the words were hollow to his ears. I'm not planning anything. I'm not trying to get anything from you, or being kind for some ulterior motive. I'm just not as bad as you think I am. Raymond replied. As master says. Nua replied to end the conversation. I'm not, he insisted. As master says. She replied again. I'm really not, he insisted again. I believe you, master. She reiterated. You're lying to me, he retorted while his face flushed red. I will say what you tell me to say, tell me what you want me to believe, and I will say it, my lord. Nua replied. I want the truth. Raymond groused between gritted teeth. His eyes darted furtively back and forth, ever more eager to just find the shop. I don't want you to hurt me, so what truth will help me avoid that best, master? Nua answered him abruptly. The real truth, Nua. The real truth. What you'd say if I weren't. I don't know,
he said, and his body slumped forward a little.
Master.
May I ask something?
Nua asked,
and he caught sight of her out of the corner of his eye when she leaned to the right and looked at him in the side of his face.
Yes, he replied,
still looking on either side of the dark and empty street. Was it hard to pretend they weren't an abomination? Nu asked, and Raymond felt his heart skip a beat. I asked because when they appeared, I expected you to show something of what you should have. I'm sure your comrade would have raged at them both. But you didn't, even though you both believe that there's no place for her or her child in this world. I was just thinking it must have been hard to pretend.
No.
It's different, Raymond asserted. For the Black, we deal with the hard things, monsters, real threats. I've seen lots of unusual things. That was new. But it's a strange world. But they're probably just a plant, people put here for me to see, not a real couple. Just paid actors to influence me, corrupt my mind.
Of course. As Master says.
Nua replied, and he felt his anger grow at her passivity. You don't know anything, Raymond said through clenched teeth.
However old you are, you don't know anything.
We didn't start this war. We didn't ask for the gods to choose us. We didn't attack your country. Your country raped our champion. My grandfather was a friend of hers, and she never recovered from what your kind did. The child she bore, my grandfather, and my father, have helped raise, and she passed into my care as our handler when I joined the Black. Even that girl. She's damaged too. A lot of harm was cast in the wake of your king's lust. And in my first encounter with elves, your kind massacred one of our towns. We didn't ask for him as our king, Nua said. He hurts us too. All the time. Everybody knows that, everyone. He's a monster. So, why me? What did I do? I never met a human till I was forced to. I'm not bad. I never hurt anyone. I swear, Master. I swear I'm not rebellious. I've never hit a human, never threatened one. I mix good potions, I saved human lives. I even loved two of you. What does any of that have to do with me? Why did our king's rape of your champion have to ruin my life? She fell silent. Forgive me, Master, I speak out of turn. I abjure all the blasphemy I've just spoken. Raymond answered by pointing ahead and to the right. There it is. We'll get you healed properly with a potion. Thank you, Master, she said as they drew close and he brought the horse to a stop. Volume 7 C78. Raymond dismounted the horse sideways while Nua slipped off the back end. They landed at almost the same moment, and it was Raymond who went to the door. It's closed, Master, as I said. I'll just pound on the door, Raymond said and raised a fist. My lord. I realize that for some reason you are trying to be kind, Nua said, and then walked to stand between him and the door. But I ask you, please do not disturb the person within. Why? Raymond asked with a little frown. Because when we return, I will have to go back to Master Dominic, and I'm sure he will ask me if I caused any trouble. I can't lie, no more than I can hope to run. I'm sure that he would beat me severely for having a cardinal wake up an apothecary at the cracking of dawn. Nua answered. Her face didn't crack, but as he looked into the depths of blue that were her eyes, and recalled the brutal treatment she received already as a test, it was all too clear that whether Dominic would have or not, she believed he would. Didn't my butler acquire you? Raymond asked with a little frown on his face. Yes, my lord. Master Dominic had him by me as it was your butler who would best know the sort of slave to meet your preferences, but he used Cardinal Partouche's funds. By law of the theocracy, I belong to him and am only loaned to you. Nu explained, and suddenly, Raymond felt like he was being examined, searched as she looked at him, though what she was searching for, he couldn't say. But, her point was compelling. I see. Then. We wait here after all, he said, and Nua moved out of the path of the door. She seemed to relax then, her back was not quite so stiff and she didn't go straight to her knees, though she kept a side eye on him while keeping her hands folded in front of the waist of her coachman's pants, and her eyes mostly down at the ground to wait in silence. The silence worked on Raymond's nerves. Are you bored, Nua? He asked. I am accustomed to waiting, Master. I idle well. She cracked a little smile. You have to, if you're going to make potions. You did mention something about that, didn't you? He asked as he stroked the brown of his beard.
I did.
Yes, sir. I'm very good at it. I even saved my master's life once when he got sick by getting elf's blood into his eye. Her little smile grew further. Beautiful boy he was.
You loved him? Raymond asked.
Surely Master would be bored by the pointless stories of a mere clothed beast. Nu answered as the smile slipped away. He's been dead for over 100 years now, I suppose. It hardly matters anymore. Raymond fell quiet at her words, watching the way she shifted on her feet. I was in love once. A long time ago. In human terms, no more than an eye blink to you, but to me, a lifetime. Oh, Master, did you marry her? Nu asked, and though her face had not changed expression much, the upward inflection he caught at least imitated interest, so he continued. She was a trainee for the scriptures, and no, we didn't marry. We never got the chance. We were on an assignment, final test. It was supposed to be easy, at least by our standards. But an ambush. Your people got bold, and have some strong fighters of their own. She remained behind to buy us time. I never saw her again. At least, not altogether. We found a few pieces hung from trees when we went back with reinforcements. Raymond looked down the empty street. Dust blew past in the breeze and the first doors began to open. I see. I've heard of that. One of the men who bought me to punish me for his wife's death, as if I had something to do with it. He needed someone to take it out on, Nu said, and Raymond looked back at her, cocking his head. Then those? He asked. She knew of what he spoke. No. He had me ready. Bound with arms open, I heard the whip behind me. I thought that was the end for me. And he just fell sobbing to the floor. I heard the whip fall, and he ordered me cut loose. I was removed from his house that day and sold again the day after. Human or elf. Even a two-legged sheep knows it is hard to lose a loved one. I still say a prayer for that one. He could not have been all evil. Nu took a step back and looked at the upper floor. Someone is awake. There is a light, Master. Good, he said and pursed his lips. Is it bad? My lord? Nu answered the question with a question, and he touched his back. If it pleases Master so well to know, yes, your servant feels as if her back has been set on fire and has felt that way since I left. I keep it clean, and the well water was very cold. That numbed it for a time, and I found a few wild herbs to numb it for a little while. But yes, my lord, I am in agony. The blank look on her face was so empty that he would have thought she was in no pain at all. Except I've seen those injuries on recruits, and how they were made to howl like wounded dogs. Raymond recalled, and asked, have you used a martial art of any kind to limit the pain? None, my lord. It is death for an elf to use a martial art. Nu answered. Do you know any that would dull your pain while we wait? He asked. I do know. One. She admitted, albeit reluctantly and darting her eyes around as if afraid someone would hear. Use it. There's no reason for you to suffer. Raymond replied, and Nu lowered her eyes. You command my death, my lord. Nu responded. Is Master under the impression that Cardinal Dominic Eelpartuch will care if it was by your order? Raymond was about to argue when she added, would it please my lord if I began lying to humans? She cocked her head at him. For all the pain she must have been in, it wasn't pain which cracked her mask, it was, if he had to guess, amusement. His mouth closed and he mumbled, you know the answer to that, Nu. You know the answer to that. She inclined her head and said very clearly, yes, Master. The door to the shop opened several minutes later, and as soon as the door swung wide to receive customers, the old man within took a stunned step back to find people already at the door of his shop. I need a healing potion, Raymond said at once. We have blue, white, purple, and green. The greens, fiends the cheap ones, made out of herbs. The old man shuffled around, and stepped aside to admit the pair into his shop. He was stooped with age and thinning white hair sat loose on his head, wrinkled muscles were few on his bony arms, but his voice, cracked with age as it was confident. It'll heal most wounds, though if and they infected already, it's a bit of a coin flip, but I can spike it if you need. The white. Mostly stamina stuff, new to market, but it has some healing properties. Don't wanna use it on no open wounds though, it increases the blood flow a lot. Meant for healing what ails men. Mostly. If that's your problem.
Raymond flushed red and coughed into his hand. No, it's for her. He jerked his thumb toward Nua, who did not laugh nor change expression. "I got some blue then. Good for healin' most things, but it ain't quite as quick and if there's infection. Nah, won't do for that." "Is it a new injury or old one what ain't closed up?" the old man asked as he finally shuffled himself behind the counter. Raymond looked around. Potions lined the shop on a multitude of shelves. The odor was overpowering to the point where he saw Nua had already covered her nose and pinched it shut. Hazes of various colors hovered above a few unsealed potions, pots, and bowls that sat over top small glowing rocks, and in front of the old man, a mortar and pestle sat with herbs still in it not entirely ground up yet from their original plant bases. "I wonder what those are for," Raymond thought as he looked at the little green mass of pulp. "It hasn't closed up, it's deep, unhealed, but it doesn't seem to be infected," Raymond said, and the old man squinted at Nua as if he couldn't see her clearly. "Come here miss, lemme have a look, I might need to make one special." The old man put a hand behind his back and slowly turned to the open path around to the back counter and waited. Nua glanced at Raymond, and he nodded, granting permission. She strode around the path, put her back to him, and raised up her shirt halfway in the back. "Good gods!" the old man gasped. "A monster got me, sir," Nua said, and the old man shuffled to the back wall. "Purple then. Is normally about 10 gold coins for this. But I'll give it to ya for 5 on account he themes some bad marks and I don't feel right bout gouging the injured. If ya can't pay, there's a form ya can fill out, it'll charge the kingdom for it." "I can pay," Raymond said as he thrust his hand into the pouch at his side and began to slap coins down on the counter. The old man took the purple potion from off the shelf and going to stand in front of Nua, he held it up in hands that shook from age. "Go on, drink it down, lass. It's foul stuff, but it'll do the job." She opened her lips as he looked up at her, and allowed him to pour it over her tongue himself. He was right, it was foul. Her hands shivered at the urge to reach up and stop him, but his pleading, barely functioning eyes all but begged her not to stop. She swallowed until the bottle was tilted all the way up and not a drop remained. No sooner did he pull it back than she coughed and hacked, spasming a little as it settled in her stomach. Then the pain was gone. But she felt something else, the breeze that came through the front door. It caressed her ears, and she felt them twitch. She reached up, her mouth opening, a sense of elation on her face as her quivering fingers caressed her now intact ears. She wiggled them up and down at the side of her head, her face lighting up like a child being given a puppy as a present. For that moment, Raymond knew one thing for sure: she is beautiful, beyond words. Then her face met his, the elation held for only a moment, frozen in time that seemed it would last forever, but rather than endure, it broke like a mirror. She clenched her hands around both her ears, and began to sob as if no joy had ever touched her face. "What's going on?" Gagrin shouted again. Her shoulder cracked the door, one more hit, and Pandora's actor was sure it would shatter. He sat at the table, seemingly numb, one hand on his leg, one arm resting on the table surface, and then the door shattered and Gagrin came barreling in, reaching for her weapon and searching for danger. Nor was she alone, the others were right behind her, and their eyes instantly went to the bizarre scene. Lakes clinging to the body of Evil Eye, wailing and sobbing into the face of the limp girl, sword still piercing the late magic caster through and through. Over and over Lakes just kept shouting, "I'm sorry. I am sorry. I'm sorry." "What the hell?" Gagrin screamed and dropped her hammer. It cracked the stone floor before it fell over, but before it did, she was pulling Lakes away and shaking Evil Eye's body. "What happened? Momen. Lakes. What happened?" The faces of the twins went pale white, their kunai out in hand, searching for the danger that took their companion. True professionals down to the bottom of their souls. Pandora's actor praised them privately, but when Lupus Regina followed the others with her hands folded behind her head, she showed no sign of pity. "It's obvious, isn't it, Sue?" Lupu asked, and the trio to enter the room snapped their attention to the red-haired cleric. She told Lakes the truth, and Lakes killed her for it. Like a good lackey of the temples, Lupu chortled at her terrible pun. "The truth? What truth?" "Lakes. Your sword. That's your sword. Why is it in her body? What did you do?" Gagrin shouted at Lakes as the woman,
rocked back and forth as if she were still holding Evil Eye's corpse. All the priestess said was, "I am sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," on a loop. "That your friend there," she pointed to Evil Eye, "was a vampire, of course," Sulupu said, and Gagran snapped up, twisting and bringing a massive, meaty fist toward Lupu. "Now's not the time for jokes," she screamed at her drinking companion, but her fist never connected. Lupu's hand came up and with her palm open, she stopped the blow as if it came from an infant. "That's no joke, except for her thinking she was doing Evil Eye a favor. That's a hell of a joke, Sue," Lupu said, then with Gagran still staring, still in position as if she would bring her fist the rest of the way if she could, Lupu stepped in close and backhanded Gagran across the face, sending the giant woman spinning off and hitting the wall face first. To her credit, Gagran was quick to start to rise, her face was red and her nose bloody. "You're not lying, evil cleric," Tia said in a quiet voice, her kunai lowered a fraction. "Nope. I found out, Sue," Lupu said and tapped her own nose with her pointer finger. "Evil Eye could hide most things, but everybody forgets the nose. Check her eyes if you don't believe me, or just wait for this one to come back to us, Sue." Lupu pointed to the still rocking Lake Hughes, and Tina, being the closest, approached Evil Eye's face and lifted her eyelids. "Are red. They're red," she said in stone silence. "The gods said. The gods said. The gods said. I had to. I had to. I had to. Abomination. The undead are abominations. Evil. She was cursed. I freed her from her curse. I made it stop for her. I did what I had to do. I did. I did. I did," Lake Hughes said while staring blankly ahead at nothing at all. "She can be brought back. She can be, right? Right, Lake Hughes?" Gagran shouted and half staggered over to the crazed priestess. "Bring her back," Gagran screamed as she got in front of Lake Hughes's face. "Bring her back. Give us back our shorty." The giant woman howled, her meaty fist connected with Lake Hughes's face, and it snapped the woman out of her daze when the back of her head connected with the stone floor. She bounced off the stone and whimpered, I can't." "What do you mean you can't? You can't? Or you won't?" Gagran said as she straddled Lake Hughes's face. "The sword. It locks away the souls of those it kills. I don't have a way to destroy the sword. But even if I had some way to get the souls out, and even that would take magic on par with a god? Evil Eye was an undead. I can't bring her back, not with a mere 5th tier spell. She's dead and there's nothing I can do about it." "You bitch. I don't care. I don't care if she was sucking blood out of Moment's cock. She was our shorty. You give her back to us," Gagran bellowed, her fist connected down with Lake Hughes's jaw again. And again. And again. "You'll kill her," Tia and Tina shouted after several blows which Lake Hughes didn't even try to defend herself against, and Gagran fell to shouting and wailing, thrashing about as she was pulled away. Down on the floor, Lake Hughes's face was a mass of pounded meat, but she made no other noise, as if accepting her death. Pandora's actor cast his eyes between them, and simply waited, as if he too were in shock. I guess you could blame Lake Hughes, given that she killed her friend pretty good, Sue. But you forget one big olay thing. Lake Hughes just a lackey, the ones who really got her killed are the ones who ought to pay, am I right, Sue?" Lupu asked. Her eyes pierced the madness of Gagran's for a moment, though the thrashing continued, it was less, allowing Tia and Tina, who still struggled to hold Gagran's arms with both of their own, were able to look at the red-haired cleric too. "I mean, you will follow the 6, right? You know you'd have to kill your friend too, don't you? But here you are, you wouldn't? Apostate much do you, Sue?" She smirked, "Or do you just hypocrite all day long, hypocriting around and playing about?" She chuckled as the giant woman's eyes darted about. "The ones who made Lake Hughes do that, why it's the slain theocracy. They're the real problem." She gave a full shoulder shrug with her arms out, "You know, how they taught all that stuff to priests. You think Lake Hughes'd do that all on her own, betray her best friend, her sister if it weren't for her gods? Nah, Sue. The faith of the 6 made her kill Evil Eye. Poor Lake Hughes is a victim too. Looky how she is. She's just a shell now. Not much left in there." Lupu went over to where Lake Hughes lay just staring up, empty and broken at the ceiling, and the red-haired cleric waved her hand up above Lake Hughes's vacant eyes.
She whistled downward. Yoo-hoo, anybody home? I've got a package for Evil Eye. It's friendship power straight from the gods. Oh, no? You don't want to sign for it, Lake Hughes? Okay, I'll just take it back and dump it into the gorge, Sue, Lupus said and straightened up. No. Gagran stopped struggling, and the twins released her. Why, you're right. She looked down at the bloody, broken face of Lake Hughes. I can't forgive you. I won't. But you're not the only one to blame. I can't bring myself to kill you. But there are a whole lot more at fault than just you. What? What about her body? Momin asked, his eyes welled up. She was in love with you, Gagran said. Did you know that? I did. And he slapped a hand over his chest. I was going to ask her to marry me at the arena. I knew what she was, but I didn't care. He proclaimed, and the trio that remained aware could only hang their heads. She never told us anything. I can't blame her, Gagran said with a broken voice and quavering lips. Do you know where my estate is in Riestais? Momin asked. Yes, I do. Gagran and the twins nodded together. There is a garden there, a little grove of trees. She loved flowering trees. I will bury her in the middle of the circle. Let me take her back, while you avenge her. Gagran snarled. I hope you live a good long time, Lake Hughes. Because when I'm done, you will be the last priestess of the water god. Gagran growled out and crouched down to pick up her hammer. We'll come see her. When we're ready. Tina. Are you with me? Gagran asked. Yes, they said, and though they sheathed their kunai, they kept their hands over the hilts. Go then. I will see to everything else, take care of everything with the dwarves, and bear her body to what would have been our home, Momin said, then added, hurry, with the noise you made, someone may come by soon. That spurred the trio into action, and they were gone. Lake Hughes remained staring up, utterly catatonic at the feet of Pandora's actor. Such a shame. I liked them all so well, even this one. I thought for a time she might even overcome her prejudices, and act out of love for her sister, he said when he was sure the trio were long gone, and nudged Lake Hughes's broken jaw with his boot. That one. With the old gods. No. That's got no place in the Allfather's world. She's so messed up she thought killing her was love for her sister. Now may I, Sue? Lupu asked, a broad, cruel smile on her face. Just make it quick. Pandora's actor replied, and Lupu's fist came down, smashed into Lake Hughes's head, and splattered the skull and brain matter across the floor. Shiltir. Open a gate, and send in Pestonia to clean the room, und Beiltich, meine Schwester. Pandora's actor said when the message spell connected. Yes, of course. Shiltir replied, and the void opened up. Pandora's actor and Lupus Regina Beta waited only a few seconds before Pestonia emerged through the gate. Do hurry, I hear people coming. Were it not for all the mining noises so close, I think someone would have come before now. Pandora's actor replied. I got these, Lupus Regina said and hefted the two corpses over her shoulders where they lay limp as sacks of potatoes. Pandora's actor drew the sword out of the corpse and began to run his hand over it. A spirit truly lies within and it seems he is singing for joy. Pandora's actor said, what an unexpected thing. He then vanished through the gate while the maid worked magic of her own at his back. He stepped through the gate and found himself in front of Demiurge in his workroom. Marvelous. The archdevil cried with almost childlike glee, clapping his hands together as Lupus Regina flopped the two corpses onto two metal tables, creating an echoing clang about the room and spattering bits of blood here and there when she did so. Demiurge's boyish grin spread over his face. Thank you both, ever so much. I have some wonderful ideas about what to do with these. Could you stay and help, perchance, or do you have things to do? Things to do? Pandora's actor repeated back to his comrade and laid the sword down on the table beside Lake Hughes's corpse. I see. Well, it can't be helped, it's fine. 2 down, 3 to go, just keep an eye on them, discreetly for now, and bring them to me when they're ready, Demiurge said and put his back to them as he began to cut away the ruined clothing from the corpses. Of course, but Demiurge? Pandora's actor said before departing. Yes? The Archdevil paused and glanced back at his comrade.
Mein kleiner Vampir, I care for her. Do not forget,
and return her to me. As she should be, when you are done. Pandora's actor said, and Demiurge remained quiet. Then gave a slow bow of his head to acknowledge his comrade's feelings. The rose may be wilted, but this petal can still be yours when I'm done. He promised, and with that, Pandora's actor and Lupus Regina walked out of the lab without another look behind them.